Hey everyone, welcome to another amazing episode of Dividing Truth. I am your host, Lexi Johnson, and today we want to talk about becoming financially independent. Right? I'm going to share some financial truths with you as we normally do from week to week to help you. That's right, my women entrepreneurs and women professionals that are listening out there. Now, I'm sure there's a few men listening, and that is absolutely fine. But I want to share with you today how to become financially free, right? We're always talking about being financially independent, being financially free, creating wealth, wealth building, all these fancy little phrases, right? That sound good. But how does one actually do that, right? That is so important to know how you actually go about doing that. And you'll be surprised, it's not very complicated to do, but it does take discipline, and it does take just being intentional about becoming financially independent, right? So before we get into our topic for today, I want to share with you that you are listening to Radio Wave. Okay, that's where Dividing Truth is presented, and you can go there and you can see there are bunch of other shows and podcasts and things that you will just absolutely love. Whomever you are, I'm sure there's something on that podcast that can interest you, right? And so feel free to go to that website and subscribe. Make sure that you're watching Dividing Truth. You can catch our episodes there as well. But I want to share with you the best place to catch the best place to catch Dividing Truth is by going to the Radio Wave app and downloading that app, right, and listening to the show there, because that's where our numbers count, right? That's where our numbers count, and we are steady growing. Our show has doubled in listeners over the last month. Our show has also we've got listeners, all over the world, including places like Japan and Australia and Brazil and all kinds of places, right, that are regularly, not just here and there, they are regularly listening to the show. So I'm grateful for all of my listeners, grateful that you all are consistent, grateful that you're finding the content, information that you want to hear and information that you can use. And we're going to keep putting forth great content for you. So as we go through today, if you're watching video of this, because sometimes with the podcast you're watching video, sometimes you're just listening to audio. But if you're watching video, listen, I'm at home, right? And so we're in real life, folks. So I don't know what's going on back here. I think the family's out there doing some deep cleaning. I don't know what they're doing, but they seem to be coming back and forth. So I apologize in advance for that. Hopefully, it's not too much of an interference for the broadcast here. Okay, so let's talk about, before we talk about becoming financially free, I want to talk about like what's going on in our society today, right? And that is affecting our finances. Each week, I'm changing up the format a little bit. Each week, I want to start out talking about something that is financially affecting us, right? And so, of course, this whole thing with COVID has just really wreaked havoc, right? In 2020. Here we are in August. Who knew, right, that at the beginning of 2020, who knew that we would be dealing with something like this? I don't think we could have imagined it, right? But as March came, and towards the end of March, as we're going into April, COVID, was really on the loose. It had started way before March, obviously, but it had really presented itself. It really manifested in a huge way. And the nation shut down, right? Not only the nation, but the world, okay? Because that's why they call it a pandemic. It affected everything across the world. And so, of course, it also impacted families and individuals financially, right? There were jobs that shut down for a period of time. There were jobs that have shut down permanently. There were people in their individual finances who were not prepared for this type of emergency and for this long, right? So just all kinds of things, right? That this pandemic has caused financially. And now where we're at is various states are trying to reopen. Some have tried to reopen and kind of have shut some things back down. Some are in the midst of their reopening stages and phases and are, trying to make sure that they do things carefully so that they don't have to shut down again. So it's just a weird and crazy time, right? And again, this has had some impact financially. So in the midst of this, we've had our government who a couple of months ago, right, sent out some aid, okay, aid to individuals, aid to businesses, aid to the unemployed, aid to students, aid to just, sent out a lot of aid, right? And now they are in negotiations for, again, sending out or putting together another package and sending out yet another stimulus package. And so the question is, are we going to see a second stimulus package, right? Well, they have been negotiating. As of the date of this recording, the Congress is technically on a recess. They are saying that, they will meet to continue negotiations through this recess time and even take a vote if they can come to an agreement. But, I question whether they're actually meeting or not, whether they're actually going to really attempt to come to some agreement, because where we are right now is at an impasse, right? The Democrats want what they want. The Republicans want what they want. There's been some negotiation, but not enough to get anything passed, right? And there's a lot of finger pointing. Oh, well, we've not been able to put together a package because the Democrats, blah, blah, blah. And likewise, the Democrats are like, well, we've not been able to put together a package because the Republicans, blah, blah, blah. And so for me personally, and you may not agree with me, and that's okay. Personally, what that leads me to believe is that people are more concerned, these politicians are more concerned about Democrat versus Republican, quite frankly, rather than they are about the people who are needing aid. In the meantime, in the midst of all of this, arguing and grandstanding and, not wanting to work together and all of that, they are, people are suffering. People are not being able to take care of things, right? So how do we get in a place? How do we position ourselves so that when things like this happen, we are not needing government aid so desperately, right? And that's what this show is about today. How do I become financially independent? Because becoming financially independent is an answer to a lot of things, right? There are people, believe it or not, who this pandemic has not affected them financially or in a big way financially. It has not necessarily set them back because they have done the things that they need to do to make sure that whatever kind of emergency or whatever, situation comes up, they're in a good position to handle it. But the majority of people have not done that. In fact, 90% of people don't ever truly become financially free. After working 40 plus years, right? People are not financially free. People are, people are struggling. And this pandemic has shown that for those people, right? There are some people maybe who did okay the first month, the first 2 months. But now it's like You know, every little resource or whatever has been drained. So how do we position ourselves so that this does not happen again? How do we position ourselves so that this does not happen again, right? Well, we have to, and you guys are going to have to excuse me because now I have to plug up. And I should have made sure that I was plugged up before I got started, right? So I'm going to have to plug up, which means I'm going to have to move some things around. So for those who are watching video, bear with me. And those who are listening, bear with me, because even though you don't see all the moving around, you just hear my voice. I have kind of paused some stuff. So hold on one second. Let me plug in. There we go. All right. Like I said, this episode is just going to be that, guys. It's not going to be perfect. So, all right. So, you know, what do we do? How do we become financially free? And so that is what I want to share with you today in today's episode. Let me bring my notes over and talk with you about, you know, the steps that one needs to take so that you can become financially free. When situations like this occur, whether it's a pandemic or whether it's something that individually you're going through or that your family is going through, or maybe just a small group of people are going through a state or whatever, you don't want to be in a position where you are desperately dependent upon the government, okay? Because quite frankly, these people, they're not living in your shoes, right? Some of them maybe, yes, they have before, but they're not living in your shoes presently. And so while they may have some kind of feeling, you know, idea of what you're going through, they're not living it right then and there. And so it is not as pressing for them to get the stuff figured out in order to help you, right? So we want to do that. So before I get into these steps, I want to share with you that you can subscribe to the show. And I have put that there on the screen, bit.ly/subscribe Dividing Truth. Subscribe to the show so that you can get the updates on the show, so that you can, you know what we're going to be talking about before others know what we're talking before others know what we're talking about it. We're starting our Fan of the Month program in September. So just, you know, if you're one of those people who like to have the inside scoop, make sure to subscribe. And that link, when you subscribe, will also subscribe you to Radio Wave. Okay. So I wanted you to know that. And Radio Wave is amazing. If you haven't been on the website, go check it out. There are a lot of very good shows and podcasts for everyone of almost any interest to listen to, right? So now let's talk about these steps. Okay. So number one, you want to plan and set goals, okay? Set financial goals. So oftentimes when I am consulting with or working with a client, one of the first questions that I ask are, what are your financial goals? And the answer is usually very general. It's usually, I want to become financially independent. I want to have an emergency fund. I want to travel. I want to retire. They're very general, right? And they're general because most people actually don't really understand how to set a really good financial goal, okay? A lot of times maybe we think we are, but we aren't. And so how many of you know that if you're not setting a good financial goal, then how do you get there, right? The more general your goal is, the more likely it is that you're just going to wander and you may not even meet that goal at all, right? But the more specific the goal is, then you can put some very specific actions in place to meet that goal, right? So that's the importance of having good financial goals. You want to think about, if you've never thought about this before, because a lot of people, quite honestly, when I ask them that, they'll tell me like, wow, I've never even really thought about that, right? Because my next question is, not only is what is the goal, but what does that look like? Okay. What does financial independence look like to you? Because there is no one, there is a definition, right? But there are various ways of achieving that. Okay. So financially independent means that you can do whatever you want, however you want. Okay, because with your finances, because you don't have those concerns, your day-to-day needs are more than met, right? You don't even have to necessarily work. I want to say linear work, right? Where you have to show up, right? You have done things that you can create yourself some passive income, so that frees up your time, and it frees up, it frees you up again in your finances, right? So, but what does that look like to you? What does financial independence look like to you? Okay. And once you know what it looks like to you, then you can determine, okay, you can begin to put numbers to that, right? So if someone says to me, I just want to get to a place where I can get up and travel whenever I want. Okay, dig deeper into that. Is that traveling 3 times a year? Is it once a month? What kind of trips? Because that's going to, the more detailed you can be about that, you can just get on the internet and say, okay, if I'm going to want to travel 3 times a year to places like France, let's say, you can get on the internet and say, okay, what do trips like that cost, right? How much money am I going to need each year to be able to do that, right? So you want to start putting dollar amounts to these things. Not only that, even retirement, right? I want to retire. What age do you want to retire? Some people have given it no thought because society just says you're going to retire at age 65, right? Or whatever the age is now, right? So you've not given it some thought really as to when you yourself want to retire. But I'm asking you, when do you want to retire? And if it's 55, 65, 70, whatever the age is, then how do you, what's the number that you need to meet, financially? How much do you have to have saved up so that you can retire, stay retired, right? Most people have not even thought about that, right? So what do? You simply just say, okay, I want to retire at age 60, probably going to live to around age 85, 86, 87. How much money do I need between age 60 and age 87 to stay retired, comfortably retired, to include whatever it is that you want to do during retirement, right? So that you can put a number to that, right? You can put a number to that. I can't believe the doorbell is ringing. Naila, told y'all guys this is whatever on the show today. So I can't, so it's important. See who's at the door. Just ask who is it. So it's important to know what the numbers are. I apologize again. It's important to know your numbers when we're talking about setting goals, right? When we're talking about setting goals, it is important that you put numbers to them. It's important then once you put the numbers to them, then you have a plan, okay? You have a plan of attack. How are you going to get there? Because it's not enough just to figure out the numbers. Now you have to put together a plan of attack, right? And many people are going to need the assistance of a financial coach or a financial advisor or someone to be able to come up with a sound strategy, okay? If you don't come from a family who that is accustomed to growing wealth, getting wealth, understands wealth, all of that, then you're going to need someone to help you with that. Okay. So you want to do that. The second thing is your budget. Okay. You want to take a good look at your budget. You want to look at what's coming in, what's going out, the things that you are doing with your finances. Are they serving you? Are they serving the, the purpose, your purpose, which is to become financially free, right? So that's important, that you're looking at that and seeing how your finances and how your spending habits and all of that aligns, right? And so, not right now, sweetie. When I'm done, I'm sorry, everyone. I'm sorry for all the interruptions today. So that is what, you want to take a look at that and say, okay, how's my spending habits? How is all of that in alignment with my goals? Is it going to help me achieve my goals? Right. So you want to look at things like, maybe there are some things that you can eliminate that are just, they're just not that important, or maybe not eliminate, but you want to see if you can do it cheaper, right? So the best way to do that really is to go through, right, and look at what we're paying very much attention to, what we're spending our money on from day to day. Now, I recommend you take it a step further, right, and not just look at your budget and establish one, but I recommend that you practice allocating, right? Because allocating actually gives you true control. It makes you the true master of your money. Because what allocating says is that no matter what income comes in, there is a certain percentage of that income that's dedicated to these things. So let me give you a general example. I like to give people like this 10, 10, 10, 70. Okay, what does that mean? 10% is for my profit first, pay myself first account, right? That 10% is money that you use to put away for your emergency fund, to put away for retirement, to put those types of things, right? So that your money begins to grow money and begins to work for you. 10% of my income is going to go towards that. To another 10% of my income is discretionary. That's my fun money, right? I can do whatever I want with that. I can go hang out with the girls. I can go to movies, buy purses, buy clothes, excuse me, knock my mic over. All of that, right? So that's what that's for. Well, then another 10% for giving, right? Because that's important to me. In fact, anyone I work with, I recommend that. Giving is just a huge part of being financially responsible and becoming financially independent. So 10% to that. And so some people, whether it's tithe or charity or whatever they're doing, that's what that's for, right? Or not only that, birthday gifts, wedding gifts, things of that nature, because Christmas, all of that, we don't typically think about those things and the impact that they have on our finances because we've not planned for them, right? So that 10% giving, okay, or charity allocation helps with that, right? Because a lot of times when I would sit down with people and go through their budget and see what their spending habits are, they're like, they don't even remember, oh yeah, I went to so-and-so's baby shower and I spent $25, right? I went to so-and-so's wedding, right, and gave them some money, right? So we forget those things, right? But if you have an allocation, then you have a pot of money where that's there, and you use that pot of money for those types of things, right? Then you have 70%, because I'm doing this 10, 10, 10, 70, right? You have 70%. 70% is, okay, that's household expenses. Whatever other bills that I have, that is where that money is going, okay? 70%. So you want to allocate, right? And your allocations may look a little bit different. They may not be 10, 10, 10, 70. Let's say that, your priority right now is to truly become financially independent and financially free. And so you're going to, you might want to do 15% in your profit account versus 10%, right? So your allocations may look a little bit different depending upon, what your financial goals are and what it is that you're trying to do, right? So the third thing is you want to spend less than what you earn. Okay, spend less than what you earn. I've always said, and I heard this somewhere, but it's so true, and I'm always sharing this with my clients as well, that it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you save, how much you keep. And beyond how much you save or keep, how much of what you're saving or keeping is growing and working for you, right? So people often will say, well, I need to go get another job, or I need to go, I need to make more income. And a lot of times that's not the case. It's not the fact that you need to go get another job. But sometimes you get another job and you will spend just as much money. You will spend even more money, because you got more money to spend. So oftentimes it's not about that. It's about what you do with that money. How much of it are you keeping? And what are you doing with the money that you keep, right? Building safety nets, right? Building your emergency fund is extremely important. So one of the first steps when I am consulting with or working with a client in terms of their finances and getting on track for financial independence, one of the first things, it's actually the second thing, but it's up there on the list, is putting your emergency fund in place, right? Starting to put up money in an emergency fund. Yes, even doing that before starting in a retirement account. And yes, even doing that, starting to do that before you pay off your debt, right? Because here's what happens. You might have accumulated debt, right? Or you're saving for retirement, but emergencies, things happen from day to day. And it could be good things, it could be bad things, right? It's like, maybe the furnace goes out and you need to get a furnace, right? Or, maybe the child needs something, you know what I'm saying? That costs a lot of money. Maybe it's a laptop or something because they got into this great program that they are, now needing materials for that were unexpected, right? So I guess that's a better way to label it. Some of it is emergencies, but some of it is just unexpected expenses, right? And that's what that emergency fund does. But if you don't have that, you have a retirement account, you don't have an emergency fund account, you can't dip into the retirement account to go take care of something unexpected that comes up. There are very few things that you can do for that, like the medical expenses or down payment on a home, but you don't even want to touch your retirement for that type of stuff. And the reason why you don't want to do that is because once you touch your retirement, people think it's simply, oh, if I took $5,000 out of that, then I need to put $5,000 back in. And it's not that. If you take $5,000 out, you might need to put $10,000, $15,000 back in because you've got to make up for the compound interest that would have taken place on that money had you not taken it out, right? So this is why it's important to have an emergency fund. And this is why I say you want to set that up first before saving for retirement. Now, let me explain why you want to put it up first, even before you pay off debt. Many of us have been through this phase where we pay off all our debts, right? And we sit there, and I hear people say this all the time. Yeah, I got my check in, but I was able to, I don't have anything left, but I'm glad I paid off everything. Well, now if you don't have anything left, and if something happens, what are you going to do? You're in a situation, right? You're going to have to then borrow some money, which you're in a good situation to do that because you're already living paycheck to paycheck, right? Now you're borrowing money that you can't pay back from wherever you're borrowing it from, right? Whether it's a family or whether it's, a loan you go get. And if you pay it back, it sets you up to fall short in another area, right? So this is why I advocate having an emergency fund. Yes, even before, getting all your debt paid off. Your first priority is you, and having that set aside, having those safety nets set aside in case something happens, then you're able to take care of it. But as it stands right now, if everything you got is going towards debt, if something happens, listen, them creditors, your gas company, light company, they're not coming to you and saying, oh, we see that you're, going through a crisis. Here's some money back, that you paid us. They are not caring about any of that. Okay. In fact, they see you going through a crisis and they still want their money too, right? So definitely want to make sure you set up your emergency accounts. Then after that, the next step is eliminating debt. Okay. And some of these steps you may be able to do simultaneously, depending upon where you are financially. But some people who are definitely paycheck to paycheck and not really having extra, you may have to, just do these things a little bit at a time. Well, now you want to eliminate debt. Hopefully you can, put a little bit up for retirement as well. You've got your emergency account going. Hopefully you can go ahead and put up a little bit even for retirement. But if you can't do that, then you want to get to a place where you can eliminate your debt, right? And the reason why you want to do that is because that's money that you can take and then begin to put up in your retirement account. Think about it. Let's say you're paying out $2,000 a month just to pay for different debts, whatever things that you owe. And I'm not talking about gas and lights. I'm talking about credit cards, things in collections, maybe old medical bills, student loans. I'm talking about stuff like that, right? And let's say like $2,000 a month you're paying out towards these things. Well, if you put a good debt elimination strategy in place, okay, something like debt snowball or the debt avalanche, either one of those will work. You put that in place, it's going to allow you to get out of debt a lot quicker, right? I have worked with clients who were supposed to be in debt for until long after, some of their things come back. You're going to be in debt until you're 120, you know what I'm saying? And then I put a strategy in place, and let's say they're about in their late 30s, early 40s when they see me. I put a strategy in place that shows them that they can get out of debt in 8 years, 9 years, 5 years, 10 years, depending upon, what they have, right? Well, then after that 5, 8, 9 years of you doing that, being disciplined and following that debt snowball or that debt avalanche, that $2,000 a month that you were paying on those bills, because you still pay that amount using that the debt strategy that I would show you, doesn't change the amount. It just changes the way you do it. That $2,000, now you can take that and you can begin putting it up for your retirement. So can imagine you're putting up $2,000 a month for your retirement, right? Now you can sit there and you can reach your retirement goal. Remember earlier we were talking about maybe you need 1.2 million to retire and stay retired, right? Now, by doing that, taking that money and shifting it over and putting it up for retirement, you can meet your retirement goals, right? So getting rid of your debt is extremely important to your financial independence, right? The next thing you want to do is consider your career, okay? Now, when I say consider your career, I'm not necessarily worried about whether it's low paying, high paying. That has something to do with it. But is there a way that you can do it that allows for you to maximize your time and maximize income, right? Are there other things that you can do, right? Maybe you're working a 9 to 5 and maybe you absolutely love what you do. But is there something that you can do on the side? Something that may take a little bit of effort at first, but then begin to, kind of earn money on its own. We call that passive income, right? Or can you get together a little bit of money, get yourself, a property that you can rent out and begin to earn income? or there, because there's a million and one ways, right? I just gave you two, but there's a million and one ways where you can begin to earn income in a way that doesn't take up a lot of time, doesn't take up a lot of, eventually doesn't take up a lot of time, right? And that can turn into something that will begin to earn so much income that you don't even have to work a 9 to 5 if you don't want to, right? So we're talking about putting things in place like that, looking at your career, and saying, okay, how can I leverage this, right? So that it works out for me, as opposed to a lot of what's going on now is that we're working so hard, and we retire and still don't really have anything to show for it, right? So how can you do that differently? It's a shame that in this day and age, in this country of the United States, that people work 40 plus years, right, and still have to struggle during retirement. That's crazy, right? So what can you do in your career? Or if there's something, is there a career change that you can make, okay, that will allow you the flexibility, right, to earn more income and not have to spend as much time doing it, right? I can do a whole podcast on that alone. Downsizing. You know, we have way more stuff than what we actually need, right? We think we need all this stuff because we watch these commercials and things that tell us, oh, you know, you need this, you need that, you need that, you need this. But I'm going to tell you guys, like over the last year, because I sold my house last year, and you know, had to live with family during this period of time. And you begin to realize like how much stuff you didn't actually need, right? Put a lot of that stuff in storage. And as time passed, like you even forget about that stuff because it's stuff you didn't actually need. We have way more things than what we actually need, right? So how about looking at, you know, how can you downsize, right? Do you actually need all of that stuff? All this, the money that we spend on these things, that we could put that money to better use, to becoming financially independent, right? Another thing that I share with my clients is be more conscious about what it is that you buy, since that's what we're talking about, right? Be more conscious about what you buy. I always tell people, ask yourself this question. Is what I'm purchasing right now, is it either in alignment with my financial goals? Is it going to help me get where I need to be? Or is it going to give me a return? Is it going to give me a return? Now, granted, there are some things that we get, we're just not going to get much of a return on. Some things that we need that we're not going to get a return on. But the thing is, for most of what we are spending our money on, right, we can do better. We can definitely get a return on it. Like, take a car, for instance. Someone else would be like, I want to go get this brand new $40,000 car or something like that, right? And it's like, I really could have taken the down payment or the money that I'm going to pay over time and do something better with that, because how many of you know a car it depreciates from the time you roll it off the lot, right? By thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, right? You couldn't turn around and sell that car the very next day for the price that you got it for, right? So these things that we're getting, right? What is the return on investment? Start asking yourself that question when you are shopping. What is the return on investment, right? So, and then the next thing is just always know where you are financially, right? This is the last thing that I want to share with you. Just always know where you are financially. It is not enough to set up financial goals all at once and then never revisit them, never evaluate how you're doing, never switch up, you know, the strategy, because there are times where you may have to switch some things up. Things change, right? Or as you get older, the strategy may be different than what it was when you were younger. And so you want to keep an eye on your finances. You want to regularly be looking at those things and regularly be evaluating, hey, am I doing the best that I can do with what I have? Am I disciplined in my you know, in my spending habits and all of those things, right? So I hope these tips have been very helpful for you all today. I know today was kind of crazy, had a lot going on in the background, and I apologize, but I hope these tips have been good for you all. And if you're needing someone to help you in terms of in terms of these tips that I've given you, right? Because like I said, we've not had any formal education on becoming financially independent, right? So if you need the assistance, get the assistance. Reach out to me. This is what I do on a daily basis: help people to put their plan together, and then give them access to the things that they need in order to make those plans, you know, become a reality. Financial independence is not hard. It's not hard. It's just knowing about it and then applying that knowledge, right? Being disciplined in it and reevaluating to make sure that things are going well, or if you need to change up the strategy or whatever the case may be, right? So I want to thank you for listening again to another episode of Dividing Truth. I am your host, Lexi Johnson. We'll be back next Thursday with another amazing episode, helping you out there, my listeners, women who are entrepreneurs and professionals, and then there's some men out there listening too, to become financially free, because you can absolutely do it. All right, we'll see you next time. Peace.